Good afternoon. My name's George Allin and welcome to one of our weekly live-streamed reflections and part of our continuing Lent course looking at the theme of sanctuary. I believe if you haven't brought your booklet, there's still some at the back. If you are looking around the church, please do feel free to continue to do so as our reflection continues. You may have already peeked ahead this week and seen that our title is A Place of Protection. We've discussed these past few weeks about how offering sanctuary has been a historic Christian value, a welcome to all wherever they come from. We've looked at how it is sometimes a chance to offer a new start, how it can allow people the freedom to flourish into the full lives God intended for them. However, as I'm sure many of you are very aware, this freedom and refuge sought is so often from a place of violence or persecution. In a short while, we will start our study group downstairs with a story about a French congregation who gave shelter and protection to Jews fleeing the horror and violence of the Nazi regime. But just before we do, I thought I would share some ways that this place of protection is not a new idea, but very much rooted in our Christian tradition. To start, we need to look no further than the birth of Jesus. After the Magi come and offer their gold, frankincense, and myrrh, Herod starts a violent massacre of all the children aged 2 and under to try to kill Jesus. So, Mary and Joseph seek sanctuary in Egypt, outside of Herod's political and military power. They stay there until he dies before returning, but sometimes overlooked, not returning to Judah where they came from, for it still wasn't safe for them, so a different province in the region of Galilee. From the very beginning as Christians, we have a Saviour who teaches us and leads us, who we model our lives on, who began his life as a refugee, protected by the welcome of strangers around him. Later, Jesus teaches us, "Whatever you did for the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." And so we Christians have followed this call to welcome and protect the persecuted, welcome those just as Jesus was welcomed, just as Jesus welcomed all those on the edges of society. This is made more explicit in his Sermon on the Mount, in the Beatitudes. Blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. A call to see the face of God in the face of the oppressed, to welcome them into our lives. This teaching we then see carried on in the teachings of the early church, as Christianity grew from its local origins and encountered a rich variety of cultures and people. In the Epistle of the Hebrews we hear, "Let mutual affection continue. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing that, some have entertained angels without knowing it. Remember those who are in prison as though you were in prison with them, those who are being tortured as though you yourselves were being tortured." These are very much not abstract ideas, but concrete calls to action, to open our lives in a public faith lived out with conviction. And it's these values which have formed the foundation of our Christian faith here in our church. And it's a message which is very present in the early years, as Christians found themselves persecuted by the Roman Empire. In this country of England, one of the very first saints remembered, perhaps the first martyr of this country, is St. Alban. Alban was originally a soldier in the Roman army. He was converted by a fleeing priest who Alban offered a place of protection, before going as far as giving him his own clothes and taking his place in execution. Near to that site today is St. Alban's Cathedral, and many people still remember this event. From the earliest Christian communities in this country, those offering a place of protection to the stranger have been held up as an example and an inspiration. In this very brief overview, I hope we've seen how this Christian approach to offering a place of protection is not a new invention, but a deep-rooted value from the beginnings of a Christian teaching. Violence and persecution, people seeking refuge in unknown cultures, unfortunately very historic human experiences. But it means as Christians we can seek God's guidance through how the historic church has been guided to open, loving arms. Thank you for listening. We'll now continue our discussions and our teaching and learning downstairs in the Octagon. The Hay Hill entrance is blocked today by works, so if you'd be able to go down from the inside steps, that would be much easier, but we'll be able to offer help to anyone who might need some assistance. Thank you.